Have you ever wondered why you can walk into a sushi restaurant, order a plate of raw salmon, and eat it without a second thought, but if someone handed you a piece of raw beef and said, "Here, just eat it," you would probably say, "No way." Think about that for a second. Raw fish? Totally normal. People eat it every single day, all over the world. But raw meat? Suddenly it feels dangerous, risky, even a little disgusting to some of us. So what is actually going on here? Is raw fish really safer than raw meat? Or is this just something we were taught to believe, a habit passed down for thousands of years without anyone really questioning it? Here's the truth. The answer goes back further than you think, way further. It goes back to ancient humans standing on riverbanks and ocean shores, tens of thousands of years ago, making split-second decisions about what was safe to eat and what could kill them. And believe it or not, some of those decisions are still shaping what's on your plate today. In this video, we are going to break down exactly why our bodies, our cultures, and our ancient survival instincts treat raw fish so differently from raw meat. We'll look at the biology, the history, and the hidden dangers that our ancestors learned to avoid, sometimes the hard way. Stick with me till the end, because the last part of this story might completely change the way you think about your next meal. Let's get into it. Let's start with the biggest reason of all, parasites. When we talk about raw meat, especially meat from land animals like pigs, cows, and wild game, we are talking about animals that live in environments absolutely packed with parasites, tapeworms, roundworms, toxoplasma. These parasites have spent millions of years evolving specifically to survive inside warm-blooded land mammals, mammals like us. That is the key detail right there. Because a parasite that lives inside a pig or a cow is already perfectly adapted to living inside a body just like yours. Same body temperature, same basic internal environment. So when ancient humans ate raw meat from land animals, they were basically rolling out a red carpet for those parasites to move right in. Now compare that to fish. Fish are cold-blooded. Their internal body temperature matches the water around them, which is usually much colder than human body temperature. So the parasites that live inside fish have evolved to survive in a cold environment, not a warm one. When one of those parasites ends up inside a human body, at nearly 37 degrees Celsius, it often cannot survive the jump. The environment is just too different. This does not mean raw fish is risk-free. It absolutely can carry parasites like an Anisakis, and that is exactly why sushi-grade fish today is flash frozen before it's served raw. Freezing kills most of those parasites. But historically, the raw fish risk was lower and more survivable than the raw meat risk, and ancient humans figured that out through generations of painful trial and error. Here's the next piece of the puzzle, and it's just as important. Land animals like cows, pigs, and goats have incredibly complex digestive systems, multiple stomach chambers, long intestines, massive surface areas packed with bacteria helping them break down tough plant material. E-coli, salmonella, listeria. These bacteria live by the billions inside the gut of a land mammal. And here's the dangerous part. During butchering, especially with the crude stone tools ancient humans were working with, it was incredibly easy to accidentally puncture an intestine or nick the gut. The second that happens, all of that bacteria spreads across the meat, across the hands, across whatever the meat touches next. Fish, on the other hand, have much simpler, smaller digestive systems, less bacteria overall, and historically, a lower risk of that bacteria transferring onto the edible flesh during cleaning. Combine that with the naturally colder body temperature of fish, which slows bacterial growth even after the fish is caught, and you get a food source that spoiled slower and carried a much lower bacterial risk when eaten raw. For ancient humans living without refrigeration, without soap, without any understanding of germs, this difference was the line between a good meal and a deadly illness. Itemorashing. Now let's talk about how ancient humans actually figured all of this out, because there was no science textbook, no lab tests, no microscope to see what was crawling inside their food. There was only observation, trial, and devastating error. Imagine an early human community eating raw meat from a freshly killed boar. Within days, some members of the group fall violently ill, stomach pain, fever, vomiting. Some may not survive. The people who ate less of it or avoided a certain part of the animal stay healthy. Over time, and we are talking generations, maybe thousands of years, patterns start to emerge. The group notices, without understanding the biology behind it, that eating meat cooked over fire causes far fewer deaths than eating it raw. This single observation may have been one of the most important survival lessons in all of human history. Fish, on the other hand, gets eaten raw again and again with far fewer serious consequences. So a cultural pattern forms. Meat from land animals gets cooked. Fish, especially fresh fish caught and eaten quickly near the water, becomes acceptable to eat raw. We cannot talk about raw versus cooked meat without talking about one of the single greatest turning points in human history, the control of fire. Once ancient humans learned to control fire reliably, everything changed. Cooking meat did more than just make it taste better. It killed dangerous bacteria and parasites. It broke down tough proteins, making meat easier to chew and digest, and it unlocked far more calories and nutrients from the same piece of meat than eating it raw ever could. Some researchers even argue that cooked meat played a direct role in the growth of the human brain. More usable calories, more efficient digestion, more energy available for a brain that was rapidly growing larger and more complex. In other words, fire may not have just kept us safe. It may have helped make us who we are. Fish never carried the same urgent need for fire. It was safer raw to begin with. So while cooking meat became almost universal across ancient human cultures, eating fish raw remained an option, one that many coastal and island cultures held onto for thousands of years, right up to today. Here's something people often miss. This was never a global rule. It was shaped heavily by where ancient humans actually lived. Communities near cold oceans and rivers, places like ancient Japan, the Arctic coastlines, and parts of Scandinavia, had constant access to fresh, cold-water fish. Eating it raw, right after catching it, was fast, efficient, and relatively low risk. No need to gather fuel, no need to build a fire. Just eat. Inland communities hunting land mammals in warmer climates faced a completely different reality. Higher parasite loads, faster bacterial growth in warmer air, longer time between the kill and the meal. For these groups, cooking became far more than a preference. It became a survival requirement. So the raw fish, cooked meat pattern we still see across the world today isn't some universal law of nature. It's the direct result of thousands of years of ancient humans adapting to their specific environment, their specific climate, and the specific dangers hiding inside their specific food sources. Here's the wild part. Modern science has gone back and confirmed almost everything ancient humans learned the hard way, just through instinct and painful experience. We now know cold water fish naturally carry a lower parasite risk to humans than warm-blooded land mammals. We know bacteria like salmonella and E-coli thrive far more aggressively in the gut of land animals. We know that freezing fish before eating it raw, a practice required by food safety regulations in many countries today, directly targets the exact parasite risks ancient coastal cultures were unknowingly managing for thousands of years. In other words, the rules your ancestors followed without any scientific explanation? They were right. They just didn't have the words parasite or bacteria to explain why. So the next time you sit down at a sushi counter and eat a piece of raw salmon without a second thought, remember, that simple choice carries the weight of tens of thousands of years of ancient human trial, error, and survival. Cold-blooded fish with fewer human-compatible parasites, simpler digestive systems with less dangerous bacteria, and generations of ancient humans learning, sometimes through tragedy, which foods could be trusted raw and which ones absolutely could not. Meat from land animals had to be conquered by fire before it truly became safe. Fish, in many cases, never needed that same battle. This is just one more example of how deeply our ancient past still shapes our modern lives. Even something as simple as what's sitting on your dinner plate tonight. If this story blew your mind, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because we are uncovering the hidden history of ancient human survival, one incredible story at a time, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Now I want to hear from you. Would you have trusted raw fish over raw meat back in ancient times, or do you think you'd have made a fire first, no matter what? Drop your answer in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.